Hi everyone, have a good day. We are the second presenter who will discuss the queering gender or LGBTQ and its studies. So, first I would like to introduce myself. I am Kristen Faker Amonte, the first reporter, and I will discuss and share to you about the history of the gay rights movement. So, the history of the gay rights movement, based on my discussion today, composed of four topics. So, first, what is gay rights movement? Second, the early gay rights movement. Third, the gay rights in the 1960s. And lastly, the fourth one, the beginning of gay rights movement. So, what is gay rights movement? The gay rights movement, also called gay liberation movement, civil rights movement that advocate equal rights for LGBTQ persons, such as for lesbian, gays, homosexual males, bisexuals, transgender persons, and queer persons. Seek to eliminate sodomy laws and call for an end to discriminate against LGBT person in employment, credit, housing, public accommodation, and other areas of life. Although the term gay is a common use in references to homosexual males, it is also used more generally to refer to homosexual males together with some or all other orientations with the LGBTQ community. This article will use the term in the latter sense because the gay liberation movement was a social and political movement of the late 1960s through the mid 1980s that urged lesbian and gay men to engage in radical direct action and to counter societal shame with gay pride. So next, the early gay rights movement. In 1924, Henry Gerber, a German immigrant, founded in Chicago the Society of Human Rights, the first documented gay rights organization in the United States. During in his U.S. Army service in World War I, Gerber was inspired to create his organization by the scientific humanitarian community, a homosexual emancipation group in Germany. So Gerber's small group published a few issues of its newsletter, The Friendship and Freedom. The country's first gay interest newsletter is The Friendship and Freedom. So the police raids caused the group to disband in 1925. But 90 years later, the US government designate Gerber's Chicago House a National Historical Landmark because of the works that he presented about the gays or the LGBTQ. Gerber has been repeatedly recognized for his contribution to the LGBTQ movement since that day. Next, the third topics. The gay rights in the 1960s. The gay rights movement saw some early progress in the 1960s. In 1961, Illinois became the first state to do away with its anti-sodomy laws, effectively decriminalizing homosexuality, and a local TV station in California aired the first documentary about the homosexuality called The Rejected. And then in 1965, Dr. John Oliven, in his book Sexual Hygiene and Pathology, coined the term transgender to describe someone who was born in the body of the incorrect sex. But some than 10 years early, but more than 10 years earlier, transgender individuals entered the American consciousness when Christine Jorgensen came out as a trans woman following gender confirmation surgery. So, despite this progress, the LGBTQ individuals live in a kind of urban subculture and were routinely subjected to harassment and persecution, such as in the bars and restaurants. In fact, gay men and women in New York City could not be served alcohol in public due to liquor laws that consider the gathering of homosexuals to be disorderly. And the last topic, lastly, the gay rights movement since the mid 20th century. And this is the current issues or rights movement of LGBTQ in the mid 20th century. So, beginning in the mid 20th century, an increasing number of gay organizations were formed. The Culture in Ontspanning Centrum, or the Culture and the Recreation Centre, or the COC, was founded in 1946 in Amsterdam. In the United States, the first major male organization, founded in 1950 to 51 by Harry High in Los Angeles, was the Mattachine Society. Um, it is named reputedly derived from a medieval French society of mass play, the Society Mattachine, to represent the public masking of homosexuality. While the daughter of Bilitis, named after the Sapphic love poems of Perloist, Chansons de Bilitis, founded in 1955 by Felice Loin and Del Marti in San Francisco. It was a leading group for women. So, in addition, the United States saw the publication of National Gay Periodical, first, which in 1958 won a U.S. Supreme Court ruling that enabled it to be mailed through the U.S. Postal Service. And in Britain, in 1957, a commission chaired by Sir John Wolfenden issued a groundbreaking report. You can see it into the Wolfenden report. You can search it in the website. It is recommending that private homosexual license between consenting adults to be removed from the domain of criminal law. A decade later, the recommendation was implemented by the Parliament in the Sexual Offences Act. So until now, a lot of gay or the LGBTQ still raise their rights to be equal in society, because some of the religious right now doesn't believe the rights, and they doesn't accept those person with the different sexual from others. So that's all the brief history of the right of the gay and LGBTQ rights movement. That's all, and thank you. So the next reporter will discuss about the variant and alternative terms.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jessica Marie V. Lorente, and now we will tackling about the variants and alternative terms. Okay. Many variants exist, including variation that change the order of the letters, including LGBT+. At least some of the components of sexuality regarding hetero, bi, straight, and also gender are stated to be on different spectrums of sexuality. Other common variants also exist, such as LGBTQIA, with a standing for asexual, aromatic, or a gender, and LGBTQIA+, which is the plus is represents those who are part of the community, but whom LGBTQ does not accurately capture or reflect their identity. Longer acronyms prompted criticism for their length, sometimes being referred to as alphabet soup, and the implication that the acronym letter refers to a single community is also controversial. Example: in Canada, the community is sometimes identified as LGBTQ2, or lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and two-spirit, depending on which organization is using the acronym. The choice of acronym changes. Businesses and the CBC often simply employ LGBT as a proxy for any longer acronym. Private activist groups often employ LGBTQ+, whereas public health providers favor the more exclusive LGBTQ+ to accommodate twin-spirited indigenous people. For a time, the Pride Toronto organization used the much lengthier acronym, which is LGBTTIQQ2SA, but appears to have dropped this in favor of simpler wording. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was also criticized for using the 2S LGBTQIA+ acronym. So, alternative terms. Many people have looked for a generic term to replace the numerous existing initialism. Words such as queer, an umbrella term for sexual and gender minorities, and rainbow have been tried, but most have not been widely adopted. Queer has many negative connotations to older people who remember the word as a taunt and insult, and such negative usage of the term continues. Many younger people also understand queer to be more politically charged than LGBT. In an effort towards visibility and inclusion, a few letters were added to the LGBT. The term homosexual sounded too clinical, and it no longer adequately represents the diversity within the LGBT community. These labels are changing. Some you may be familiar with, but others may be very new to you. So let us try to explain it as simple as we can. Lesbian, a woman who are emotionally and sexually attracted to a woman. Gay, men who are emotionally and sexually attracted to men. Bisexual, man or woman who emotionally and sexually attracted to men or women. Transgender, asexual or ally. Asexual are people who do not feel sexual attraction to anyone, but it does not mean that they do not engage in romantic or sexual relationships. Allies are straight or heterosexual people who are fighting for LGBT rights. Plus, the plus sign refers to all sexualities that do not fit in the LGBTQI spectrum. Your gender identity, how you feel, is different from your physical sex, or male or female. Queer, used by people who celebrate all gender identities, can also mean someone who do not want to be restricted as lesbian, gay, or bi. Intersex, people who were born with sex genitals or chromosomes patterns that do not fit the typical female or female body.
Good morning everyone, I am Reno Malaki and I will discuss the heteronormativity and homosocialization. There are 4 categories under social attitudes: the heteronormativity, homosocialization, LGBTQI plus stereotypes, and homosexuality and religion. First is the heteronormativity. It is a belief that people fall into distinct and complementary genders, man and woman, with natural roles in life. It asserts that heterosexuality is the only sexual orientation or only norm, and that sexual and marital relations are most or only fitting between people of opposite sexes. It's the idea that heterosexuality is the only normal and natural sexual orientation, and so it implies that all other forms of sexual expression or gender identity are abnormal or deviant. Think about the TV and the films that you watch, and the proportion of heterosexual couples compared with gay and bisexual couples. Second, in social attitudes, the homosocialization is a process by which individuals of the same sex are socialized to conform to the norms, values, and behaviors that are considered appropriate for their gender. This socialization occurs through various means, including family upbringing, peer interaction, media representation, and education. It's an important aspect of socialization that shapes individuals' gender identity, behavior, and relationship with others. It can have both positive and negative effect on individuals depending on the norms and values that are being transmitted. Some positive effects can include increased social skills, the development of supportive relationship, and the fostering of teamwork and cooperation. Negative effects can include the reinforcement of gender stereotypes, the restriction of individual expression, and the promotion of toxic masculinity.
LGBTQIA plus stereotypes. What are LGBT stereotypes? A simple definition of a stereotype is any wrong idea or belief that people have about a thing or a group of people. The role of stereotypes in general is to put people in certain categories so it's easier to predict what a person is and as a result easier to control. LGBT stereotypes affect everybody from the community and stop them from being their true selves, so the sooner we break them, the better. The constant pressure on LGBT people to have in a certain way and talk in a certain tone or dress in a certain type of clothes in order to be labeled gay or bi or trans puts huge pressure on them. That pressure makes a lot of them hate who they are or ignore their own needs for years to avoid being abused and criticized. Belief and stereotypes about LGBT people. The public's perception of, belief about, and interest in LGBT individuals and the issues impacting them has long had great significance to the community's social, political, and legal progress. The last decade has seen monumental changes in public attitudes about people and the laws that affect them in the United States and around the world. Much of this change has been positive, including the landmark Supreme Court decision to legalize same-sex marriage. In some parts of the world, even those that have witnessed great strides for LGBT equality. There have also been signs of a backlash against the community's newfound rights and visibility in society. Stereotypes of LGBT individuals, mostly negative, have been responsible for much of this reaction, as well as the historically negative view by the public. In the 20th and 21st centuries, the media has played a major role in creating and perpetuating these stereotypes. 4. Homosexuality and religion. So what is homosexuality? Characterized by sexual or romantic attraction to or sexual activity with people or the same sex, involving or relating to same-sex desire or sexual activity. Religious belief and views of homosexuality. Religious belief continues to be an important factor in opposition to societal acceptance of homosexuality and same-sex marriage. Americans who say that homosexuality should be accepted by society has increased from 47% to 60%, while saying it should be discouraged has fallen from 45% to 31%. White evangelical Protestants, 59% to 30% homosexuality should be discouraged. Black Protestants more say homosexuality should be discouraged, 51% than accepted, 39%. By contrast, white majorities of Catholics, 71%, and white Protestants, 65%, say homosexuality should be accepted by society. Shaping attitudes about homosexuality, the role of religion and cultural context. Across the globe, the debate over homosexuality continues with great variation in public opinion about acceptability of homosexuality. Laws regulating same-sex unions and penalties for homosexual sex behaviors. Religion is often seen as an important predictor of attitudes about homosexuality. However, cross-national differences in culture or orientations suggest that the role of religion has in explaining homosexual attitudes may depend on a nation's cultural context.